Hi, this is John from First North Marketing, and today I'm going to be talking about how to increase conversion rates on Amazon using A/B title tests. So first, starting off, why should we do A/B testing, let alone A/B title tests? Here is just a very simple example of the power of A/B testing in order to increase conversion rate. If we take a sample product that has a 10% conversion rate and we say it has 10,000 sessions, they get 1,000 sales at a retail price of $30, that's $30,000 in revenue. Now, if we can increase that conversion rate by just 2%, our net gain in revenue is $6,000 a month without having to spend any additional time on our business or any additional time in developing new products or any additional dollars in marketing. That's a really powerful process. So how does this work with titles specifically when it comes to A/B tests, and why should we do it? First of all, what we're going to do is we're going to use the terms that not only shoppers use, but also that our actual buyers use. And I'm going to show you how to find those. And then we're going to look at our shopper visibility and SEO and how to get people to actually click on our title to lead them to our listing. So that way the rest of our listing, those images that you have on your listing, the A+ content, those great bullets, and all the other copy can really do its job in order to convert that shopper into a buyer. And then the third thing to keep in mind is the power of compound interest. You've probably heard about this if you've ever taken a retirement class that talks about compounding interest. The same principle applies on Amazon, that increasing your conversion rate by 1 or 2% with one of these A/B tests, if you do that over time after 3, 4, 5 tests, you can easily increase your conversion rate 3 or 5 or 7%, which could have a huge impact on your business, both because you're making more sales based on the traffic that you're getting, but also more importantly, understanding that the Amazon algorithm rewards products that have a higher conversion rate. And that's why it's so important to not only do title tests, which is what we're going to be talking about today, but there's other tests that you can run as well for main images and your A+ content in order to make sure that you have the highest converting product possible in order to build your brand. So how do we get started with doing an A/B title test? First of all, it's important to know that what I'm going to be talking about here, you do need to be brand registered. If you're brand registered, you have access to a tool within Seller Central or Vendor Central called My Experiments. And within that tool, if you go into there, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to verify that the product that we're doing this research on and that we're creating a title for is eligible in order to do an experiment. And very simple, when you go into that tool, it'll show you which ASINs are eligible and which ones are not eligible. This eligibility is generally determined by how much traffic that listing is getting. If the listing is getting enough traffic, you'll be able to do an A/B test. If it's not getting enough traffic, it'll become ineligible. Unfortunately, Amazon does change how much traffic a ASIN needs in order to be eligible for doing A/B testing. So you want to make sure that you check this before you put all the time and energy into doing the research and creating new titles. Once we've done that, we've verified that we can do an A/B test, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to review our organic rank. This is where we use a tool like Helium 10, and we find those page 1 keywords that usually are ranking between the top 10 to 15. And what that's telling us is the Amazon algorithm thinks that these are the keywords that most of the shoppers are using in order to find our product organically on Amazon. And then we're going to select those keywords that make sense for us. The Amazon algorithm has a lot of great capability and artificial intelligence and machine learning built into it. But at the end of the day, what we see is that about 20 to 40% of those keywords that we rank even on page 1 for may not be the keywords that we want to put in our title in order to interest people in our product and ultimately lead them to buy. This is why it's super important that we do step 3. This is where we review those search terms. Search terms are the actual terms that a customer puts in order to find your product and then buy your product. So these are the terms that the buyers are using. And the way you can see search terms is if you're doing any sort of advertising and have sales from that advertising, Amazon will show you the exact search term that buyer used to find your product. So we want to make sure that we pull that information from Amazon. You can pull it directly from Amazon and get up to 60 days of this data. Or if you're using some other software platform, a lot of them will cache this data so you can look at a 90-day window or 180-day window or however long you want to look at. It's important to know when you're looking at these search terms that you're looking for something that has the more sales it has, the more validity and the greater possibility that when you put that into your title, that you're going to see an increase in conversion rate. So if it's a search term that you only see one sale from, there's a possibility that that could be a complete fluke. If you see two sales, especially within that 60-day period, generally there's a strong probability that that's a phrase or a term that you want to consider putting into your title if it makes sense. And if it's got 3 or more sales, then that's something that most likely is really driving people to be interested in your product and, more importantly, ultimately buy your product. And again, it's important to note that we are looking for search terms, not keywords that drive sales. So especially in advertising on Amazon, you might be using a broad keyword to advertise your product, such as, we'll use an example of cookies. But in order to find your product, that customer might have typed in gluten-free mini cookies. What you want to do in your research portion is you want to take that longer tail term, that gluten-free, sugar-free cookies, if that's what your customer used to actually buy your product, and you want to put that into either all or part of that into your title, because that's what customers are ultimately using to buy your product on Amazon. Step 4, once we've done that research, we're going to take a look at titles from other brands. We're going to start, generally what I like to do is look at 2 or 3 other competitors, and then I like to look at 2 or 3 listings from adjacent categories. So we use the example of cookies. I might look at brownies and look at some of their titles from those products as an example in order to get some ideas of how I can improve my title. And then the third area that I look for inspiration are what I call mentor brands. And those are the brands that are really strong on Amazon, where we can see that they've done a great job on their copy, they've done a great job on their images and their A+ content and everything else. And they just have a really strong brand. What I like to do is use those as an examples and see what I can pull from them in order to translate it into my brand in order to make my title stronger. Step 5, we want to draft 3 to 5 new titles. Here, what we want to do is we want to focus on that first 80 characters, because that's what people on mobile are going to see. And that's between 50 to 70% of our shoppers are only going to see that first 80 characters. Now, we do want to use more than that, because, more depending on your category, up to, between 150 and 200 characters is what you can use for your title. And all of those characters get put into the algorithm for SEO. But we really want to focus on that first 80 characters, because that's what those mobile shoppers are going to see. In addition to that, we want to make sure that we catch that buyer's attention. Really, if we're looking at our title, a big part of its job as people are scrolling across 20 products on page 1, we wanted to catch that buyer's attention, bring it to our listing page where we've got our listing images, we've got our bullets, we've got our A+ content, we've got other things that can help sell that product and convert that person, that shopper, into a buyer. But we need to get them in the door first, and that's what a really good title does. Also, we want to look for benefits or features that may not be highlighted by a competitor, especially if we're in a very competitive niche. Maybe we have very similar benefits and features, but we might have shoppers or customers that are interested in one benefit or feature that may not be called out very well by a competitor, very high in their listing, and that first 80 characters we talked about. So we definitely want to look for those opportunities to stand out from our competition. Step 6, we want to set up that title test. In my experience on Amazon, generally what I like to do is set it for the max amount of time, which in this case is 10 weeks. And then what I do is I review that after 2 to 3 weeks. It's important to know that if you see something, very dramatic happening in your data, where maybe your new title is converting at half of what your current title is, or maybe it's converting twice as well as your current title, you can cancel an experiment at any time. So that way, if you're getting results that are way outside of the bounds of what we normally see, which is normally we see, 2 or 3% increase or decrease in conversion rate. And in those cases where the data is pretty close, we want to let that run as long as possible. So we collect as much data as possible before we make that final decision. Now, once we've done that, what we can do is determine the winner. So in general, what we're doing is we're optimizing primarily for conversion rate. Be aware that Amazon takes some other factors into account. So they might say that the probability that one of your other titles is the winner, even if it has the lower conversion rate. But we generally look primarily at that conversion rate as our the best metric to kind of gauge success off of. In addition to that, if your title was better than the original title that you have, you want to make sure that you update that on your listing so that way you can take advantage of it. And then lastly, you want to enjoy the profits out of this process. You've put all the research into what it takes to have a better title. You've set up the test, you've done all the work. Now you're increasing the conversion rate of that product and growing your brand. So you want to make sure that you're enjoying those profits along the way. And that is how we A/B test titles in order to increase our conversion rate and ultimately grow our brand. Thank you for watching. This is just a small sample of what we do in order to help brands. If you're a 6 or 7 figure CPG brand looking for someone to help you scale, you can connect with us by scheduling a free discovery call at firstnorthmarketing.com.